by Aquila and Lentulus.
We thought just because this is the beginning of book 2, we'd explain what's about to happen. So in the first 300 lines, Aeneas begins with the story of the Trojan horse. The treacherous Greek Sinon lies to the Trojans about the horse and persuades them to bring it into their city. First, he explains his presence by telling them a false story about the hostility of Ulysses, or Odysseus, towards him.
Then Sinon lies about the purpose of the horse. Laocoon, the Trojan priest who had urged destruction of the horse, is killed with his sons by serpents from the sea.
So the passage begins with primus first, ibi ante omnes, in front of or before everyone, magna comitante caterva, with a great crowd accompanying, and that's an ab. Ardens Laocoon, so burning or ardent Laocoon, decurrit ran down, ob summa arche, from the top of the citadel, et procul, and far off. And then we imply like a he said or he shouted, O miseri, O wretched ones, quae tanta insania cives, what so great insanity, citizens. And just because that doesn't make a ton of sense in English, I think it's best to add an est ista, which means is this. So, O wretched ones, what so great insanity is this, citizens? And then creditus avectos hostis, so you trust that the enemies have been carried away, with an implied essay to complete the verb. And then aut ola putatis dona carere dolis danuum, or you think any gifts of the Greeks to be free from deceit. Sic notus Ulysses, thus the famous Ulysses. And so some grammar notes, dolis is an ablative of separation with this verb right here. And like we said before, Ulysses is just another name for Odysseus. And then the last few lines, all these questions are just an example of rhetorical questions for the speaker to make his point. So he continues on with these three, out, and it's just important to remember that it's translated either or. So either the Argives occultantur are concealed, inclusi, having been shut up, hoc ligno, in this wood, out, or haec machina, this machine, and then the book says to add a belly, so which means of war, just to highlight what this horse is going to be used for. So this machine of war, fabricata est, was constructed in nostros muros, in or into our walls, inspectura domos, so going to inspect homes, venturaque de super orbi, and going to come to the city de super, from above. Out, or again, aliquis latet error, so some, and I implied an other, so, or some other error, deceit, latet, lies hidden. And then this imperative is equo ne credite teucri, so do not trust the horse, Teucrians. And so the hoc ligno in the first line is an example of metonymy because although it's just saying this wood, it's actually referring to the horse as a whole, which is made out of wood. And then both inspectura here and ventura are future participles to denote purpose. Then the urbi in the same line is just interesting to note that typically that construction would be in orbem. And then again in the last line, the ne credite is an odd construction because that would typically be nolite credere, but just because of the poetic rhythm, it needs to take this form.
Quidquid id est, whatever it is. And then this next line here is a proverbial line. Whatever it is, I fear Greeks, even bearing gifts. So what this proverbial line is saying is the Greeks are so treacherous that they are not to be trusted even with gifts. So that's saying a lot. Sic fatus, thus having said, implied this, thus having said this, he hurled his great spear in gentem hostem with extreme force, with the valides viribus, that is an ablative of manner. This section here, this line, the valides ingentem viribus hostem, this all is a synchises. So, thus having said this, he hurled his great spear with extreme force at the, or into, at the side latus of the beast. Another way to say the fairy, it's basically the same as equi, so referring to the horse. He hurled his great spear with extreme force at the beast's side, and into inque, the frame of the curved belly, curvam album. The spear sticks, shaking, tremens, that's a PAP, and with the womb striking back, the utero recuso is an ablative absolute. The hollow cavity, kawai kawerni, roared in sanure, and gave out a groan. And the insanure and the dedere, these are both unsyncopated forms of insanuerunt and dederunt. Moving on to the next slide. Et, and, if the fate of the gods, if our minds, or if the mind, non laiwa fuisit, had not been unlucky, he would have implied us, he would have impelled us to fodere, to defile the argolicus latebras, the Greek hiding places, Pharaoh, with iron. Troaque nunt staret, Troy would still stand, priamique arx alta meneres, and you, the high tower of Priam, would remain. So the fuisit, the staret, and the maneres are all part of a contrary to fact condition, except in this case, the impolerat is indicative rather than subjunctive. And the maneres here, this is changed to second person singular, which is a personification, and apostrophe, which adds to the pathos of the phrase. All right, so that is Book 2 of the Aeneid, lines 40 through 56.